in Western Sydney in Penrith. Went to a couple different schools there. And my favorite subject was, look, I want to say science in retrospect, but at the time it was probably drama or PE, to be honest. So I do a bunch of different things. I work with robotics. We're trying to make robots that automatically pick apples, as well as do other things in agriculture, like count the number of fruit on the trees, count the number of flowers, tell growers like when their fruit is ripening and when it's ready to be picked and things like that. But the main thing is trying to get robots to pick the fruit. My job in that is pretty varied. I work as the CEO of the company, but it's only a small company. There's 4 or 5 people, which means that I do the day-to-day sort of operations and business side of stuff. But I also do a lot of engineering, actually physically building the robots, designing the robots, deciding what parts to use and how to use them. I guess a typical day, we do a mix of work from home stuff and stuff in the shed. So I guess the normal day would be I go to the shed, I do a couple hours of emails and meeting type stuff, just making sure that everyone's being paid that needs to be paid, stuff that's being ordered is on the way, any customers we have know what's going on, any investors we have know what's going on, people know what they need to do, that sort of stuff. And then I'll do a couple hours of deeper work where I'm trying to work out, okay, this new part needs to get fruit off the tree without damaging it, and we've got all these ideas of how to do that, and I'm actually going through and designing that on the computer or doing the same with software or something like that. And then I'll get tired and I'll do a couple hours of more physical type stuff, like actually going and testing stuff we've made, or just bolting stuff together. So your brain's tired, but your body's not tired yet, so you can get up and do physical stuff with the robot, tests or assembly, or maybe other meetings and things if it's a busy day for meetings, I'm not sure. So Australia has a very expensive labor, which means that when you have something that's very intensive to do and very slow to do, it makes that thing very expensive. So with picking fruit, fruit has to be picked one at a time by hand, but no one will do that for a very cheap price. They wouldn't like to. It's not a fun job. But then that means the fruit becomes more expensive because it costs a lot of money to pay enough for people to want to do that. So that's the sort of work that's really good to automate. Boring work, hard work where you damage the fruit if you're not doing it properly, and it's seasonal. So it's a really good place, Australia, and a really good job with fruit picking to try and automate and have a robot do it for us. So no one has to go pick fruit by hand, usually for less money than they want, but more money than the growers can afford. Well, I guess for us, the entire, we're all about building new technology to automate different things. In doing that, I suppose, especially over the last few years, it's been helped a lot by things like chatbots, like ChatGPT and other large language models, because you can basically give them a piece of code and say, hey, can you explain this to me? If it's code that is hard to understand, hard to read, it's good to be able to chat with this model that's read all the code in the world and knows a lot about it, and you can ask it questions and it'll explain things to you, or even it'll write new stuff for you if you like. But I mean, doing automated robots outside wasn't even possible 5 or 10 years ago, because it's very difficult for a computer to see. It was in the past difficult for a computer to see, knowing it's just getting a stream of numbers, and how does that work out what that means in the real world. But just recently, over the last 5 or 10 years, we've figured out really good ways of getting the computer to know, if that's a person, if it's an apple, how big that apple is, where the boundaries are of different objects. it probably feels normal to young people, but like when I was at uni, this was like impossible. This is the kind of thing that maybe if you had a research group in 10 years, you might be able to make a crack in it. And now it's easy. Now we can all do it, and the computer's fast enough to do it in real time and outside and with all sorts of changing lighting. That's been a really big change. And I don't know, people don't seem to know that. So that's kind of cool. That's a good question. I suppose, I mean, I sort of started things myself quite a lot. When I graduated from uni in computer science, my first thought was, okay, I'll start a company that makes games, because games are fun. So I did that by myself for a little while and didn't make much money. And then eventually I had to go get a normal job, and I worked as an engineer for another startup for a little while. And then basically as soon as I had enough, only a small amount of savings from that, but enough that I didn't have debts and things I needed to pay off, I went and started another thing, which is the fruit picking robots company. So I guess the surprising thing is you can just do this stuff yourself. Yeah, I guess you'd say the biggest skill I learned is actually just the ability to not be worried about being wrong and really look for being wrong as fast as possible. Now, when I started out, you actually really don't know anything. Your best guesses are going to be really bad. If I was going to do it again, I think a better idea would be to, at least part of the time, be with another company and try to learn stuff first. But I mean, I don't even know. That shouldn't replace trying to do things on your own, because you learn way more when you do things on your own, and it's more useful stuff. Like when I do a new project now, I know how to set up and do projects. Yeah, so I guess not being disheartened when things don't work out, trying different ways of doing things. I wear work boots most of the time. They've got steel caps, and they're just helpful if walking through mud in the field, or when I'm in the workshop if something falls on your feet. It's good to have steel cap boots.